Three, two, one. What is DevOps? Okay, so I'm going to read an explanation of DevOps written by one of the service providers in the space. DevOps is a combination of cultural philosophies, practices, and tools that combine software development with information technology operations. These combined practices enable companies to deliver new application features and improved services to customers at a higher velocity. So the reason I'm doing this video is because most people will hear that and they will have no idea of what DevOps actually is unless they already work in the space and are a part of DevOps. Um, I like to explain things at a fundamental level so that people can take a practical reasoning away when they hear the explanation. So DevOps, the name says it all, right? Dev, which is short for development, ops, which is short for operations. You bring those two together, you have DevOps. Uh, Try to look at it this way. DevOps is really not a new thing. The terminology is new. It's a trendy, sexy term, so you hear it a lot. That's new, but the idea is not new. And what it basically means is that if you have a development team that is responsible for building software applications, and you have the operations team that is typically responsible for maintaining those applications after they have been built and deployed or delivered. DevOps is a cultural idea that if you bring those two groups together who typically and traditionally have worked in silos, you bring them together and you have them collaborate continuously from the beginning of the software project or product to the end after it's delivered and being maintained. By having the development team and the operations teams work together continuously, uh, the idea is that you'll get a lot of benefits, and some of those benefits are you'll be able to make changes and deploy them a lot more quickly. You will be able to do it more efficiently, and time is money, right? So those two things, efficiency and speed, are two of the biggest benefits of DevOps. The biggest piece of the pie here, though, is at its fundamental core, DevOps is about a cultural change. Right. Earlier, I said that you have operations teams and development teams. Traditionally, they have worked in silos, independent of one another. Now, in an enterprise, a large company, or a government, uh, this is really, really challenging. If we're talking a couple of kids in the garage and one guy's responsible for development and the other guy's responsible for maintaining the application, it probably won't be that big of a deal to get those two guys to work together because there's only two of them. But, introduce enterprise level staffing, government level staffing, and size. You just have, thousands of people in teams scattered all over the world trying to come together to work on something consistently. Bringing the development teams and the operational teams together is a challenge, right? It's a huge challenge. Just having the operational teams and the development teams work together in their own silos can be a challenge, but bringing them together, that just adds another layer of complexity. Uh, and that is why DevOps is really less about tools. And I know you hear a lot of tools. There's a lot of jargon and buzzwords being bandied about and thrown around right now. But what's at its core, what makes DevOps is cultural change in the organization that is usually driven by someone at the senior leadership level on down. to the rest of the staff. And the reason why it's important to have sponsorship at the senior leadership level is because DevOps is hard. Culture change is hard without DevOps is hard without culture change. You're typically trying to get folks who are used to working in a certain way to change how they work and to work with another group. And you're trying to make that happen with a bunch of tools in buzzwords like CI/CD and Kubernetes and AWS, and just throwing all those things around may sound very good and may look good on paper, but it does not actually solve any problems until you can get your team culturally to come together and buy into this thing called DevOps. So in a nutshell, that's what DevOps really is all about. If you are looking for tools of it, or information about tools or service providers or those kinds of things, those are all over the internet. But what you will not find generally is someone explaining this to you in the way that I am. So if you are interested in DevOps, or you're already in DevOps and you're wondering why things may not be working the way you want, that is because it probably has to do with the culture not being driven from the senior leadership level. Change agents at the senior leadership level, sponsors at the senior leadership level are really important when you're trying to change a culture, which is very difficult to change.